I care about you all, and so I'm going to be brutally honest and transparent with y'all. If you have cancer and are only doing conventional treatments, you may have a big problem. You see, conventional therapies like chemotherapy and radiation do not eliminate cancer stem cells, and surgery is not guaranteed to either. This is why recurrence rates are so high. So, yes, normally speaking, stem cells are a good thing, but cancer stem cells, aka tumor initiating cells, are not a good thing. So, stick around. I will go into this a little further, and more importantly, I will actually give you a list of supplements as well as procedures that actually do target and kill cancer stem cells. Hi, I'm Dr. Lisa Matejka, Cancer Transformation Guide, Naturopathic Doctor, Energy Worker, and Life Coach. I help those with cancer and navigate their inner journey towards health and wellness on all levels, physically, mentally, emotionally, energetically, spiritually, to stack the odds in their favor with compassionate guidance and loving support. So, yes, cancer stem cells, aka tumor initiating cells, are said to be responsible for drug resistance, chemotherapy resistance, radiotherapy resistance, and therefore cancer relapse, in part due to their ability to self renew and differentiate into heterogeneous lineages of cancer cells. So basically, they can adapt and differentiate to become stronger against these therapies, thus evading them and also evading the immune system. And they also have the ability to induce their own cell cycle arrest, meaning they can essentially hibernate and then hide, and later they can wake up and wreak havoc. So, chemo and radiation essentially cause resistance to their own therapies. Now, surgery, if done properly, where the mass is not cut into and if caught early before spread, can leave you good, but this is oftentimes not the case. Cancer stem cells can sneak off into blood circulation and lymph circulation well before detectable metastases, but the result over time can be just that, a metastasis. Now, typically surgery is still a good idea to get, but you want to take something that targets these stem cells. Bit of a disclaimer. So, it is a rare treat you're in for me to be recommending any sort of supplements on a video. I'll be recommending procedures as well, because I normally reserve that for one on one counsel. This is because when it comes to cancer and supplements, there is not a one size fits all approach. There are many things to take into account, many things I take into account. The exact type of cancer, location, stage, grade, what other treatments are you doing? And the exact type of chemo can determine exact types of supplements, as well as any genetic test results. And then there's specialized labs I run and I see what these tell me. And then there's things to consider like gut health, your entire health picture, what other conditions, diseases, syndromes, disorders you have, sensitivities. The list goes on. But since this is a video about supplements that target the stem cells specifically, as well as procedures, I will give you a list of those. I will let you know what those are. However, I still do recommend that you see a holistic provider of your choice, whether it's a naturopathic doctor, naturopath, maybe even a herbalist, Ayurvedic practitioner, Chinese med practitioner, holistic doctor, whatever. I still recommend you see them, even though I think you should start some of these supplements immediately. Do see them though, as soon as possible. To, for one, figure out the correct dosage. Dosage is not something I'm going to get into for several reasons. Sometimes there's just not a consensus on what the proper dosage is, and the dosage is going to be personalized for you. Going to take things into consideration like your body weight, like how the severity of your disease, like your whole entire health picture and history, which I know nothing about. And that way, well, also, actually, that last one is more so for picking which ones are best for you. So with the list that I'm going to give you, it's probably not realistic to do all of them. So your practitioner can help you decide which of those would be most beneficial for you, considering your whole entire health picture. And then the dosage is mostly going to be based on things like the severity of the disease, body weight, and how well you absorb and assimilate things, so gut health. And sometimes that's hard to discern, but you could be taking the best supplements in the world, but if you're not absorbing them and assimilating them into your body, they're not going to do any good. So, and then things about dosage, of course, if you take too little, it's not going to do the trick. If you take too much, that's not usually a problem, but it can be taxing if you have sensitive liver or kidneys, for example. So, yes, I do recommend speaking with your holistic practitioner, naturopathic doctor, etc. Okay, so I'm going to tell you what these supplements are. Some are actually foods, one is actually a medication. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about them. I'm not going to go into all of the other wonderful things that they do, but I might mention a couple. I'm not going to go into every single study, that would be insane, but I am going to mention some. So, first, in no particular order, we have melatonin. So, I said I wasn't going to talk about dose, but I am going to say when you take melatonin for sleep, it's typically a 5 milligram dose. Now, when you take melatonin for an anti-cancer therapeutic, you are going to be taking at least a 20 milligram dose. That's all I'll say about dose. So melatonin has lots of studies on it. I mean, as of 2001, so that was like more than 20 years ago, but that long ago, there were like 41 in vitro studies, 28 of them being human. So many more since then. Since 2001, there's been 3 meta-analyses on melatonin, and it does show that melatonin increases survival time, also quality of life. It has anti-proliferative effects, and it also is an anti-estrogenic, which can be useful in hormonal cancers. Anti-proliferation, of course, meaning it's gonna stop and halt the growing of the cancer. And then we have EGCG. So, see if I can remember this. I always mess it up. Epigallocatechin gallate, EGCG, epigallocatechin gallate, which is a derivative of egalic acid. And both of those, egalic acid and epigallocatechin gallate, EGCG, they are known to inhibit cancer stem cells. And these are components of green tea. So it has been shown that they induce DNA damage in the cancer cells, thus inhibiting cancer cell growth, proliferation, and tumorigenesis. Inhibits all of those. There's also an immune effect as well. And it's been shown that those that regularly consume green tea, they have reduced rates of cancer recurrence. Vitamin C. So yes, there's lots of benefits of the high dose IV vitamin C. I'm not speaking about that right now, but there's tons of great stuff that does for cancer. I'm actually just talking about taking oral supplements of vitamin C. Many studies have shown that those not only help cancer symptoms, but they prolong life and inhibit carcinogenesis. So inhibit the formation of cancer. And then we have berries. So we're on to a food. So there have been many studies on berries and cancer, particularly black raspberries or blackberries, showing that it prevents cancer in the first place. It also inhibits carcinogenesis, so inhibits the formation of cancer, and can actually reverse tumor growth, which is really cool. And the component specifically in berries that is believed to be responsible for for targeting and killing the cancer stem cells is called pterostilbene. Pterostilbene. And then blueberries are good too. So for whatever reason, the next one is blueberries and ginger together. They're a team. I learned about this at an integrative cancer conference. Something special about the combination of blueberries and ginger together. And we know ginger is really good for a lot of things. It's an anti-inflammatory, which is always a good thing to take for cancer. Of course, it's also a good digestive and anti-clotting and all sorts of stuff. Next, we have sulforaphanes. Sulforaphanes are nutrient compounds found in the brassica family of vegetables, so things like broccoli, cauliflower, bok choy, Brussels sprouts, kale, and more. And they're known to be good for hormonal cancers due to the anti-estrogenic effect, but really they do target all cancer stem cells, and they're just anti-cancer in general and anti-inflammatory. And then, of course, there's curcumin, a very popular one to be taken for cancer. Curcumin is a known anti-inflammatory. It has so many anti-cancer properties, I can't even explain it all. It does stuff with the immune system, and it is definitely a good anti-cancer one. Then we have one I'm not going to spend too much time on called Halin 951. Halin 951 is a specific, proprietary product made by a company. It's essentially a fermented soy beverage. There's actually a lot of studies on it, a lot of studies for a lot of things that it does that are anti-cancer. So if you're interested, go check it out at their website. But I believe the anti-cancer stem cell effect to be due to the soy isoflavones, because that is the next one on the list. Soy isoflavones are good for being anti-cancer stem cell. And the thing is, so people think it's actually unsafe to take those in hormonal cancers, and that's actually not true. It's actually not true. You do want to stay away from isolated soy. You want to stay away from isolated soy products with hormonal cancers, but the soy isoflavones are more like a modulator. So it'll either raise or decrease estrogen depending on what is needed. But anyways, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the cancer stem cell effect, and soy isoflavones work for that, as well as the fermented soy beverage Halin 951. And the medication I'm going to talk about is metformin. So I'm not a big pill pusher, but I have to include this on the list because it does target cancer stem cells. So metformin is a known prescription drug for diabetics, and there's a couple reasons it's actually good to take for cancer. It is used off-label for cancer, and in part due to the fact that it does control glucose. So even if you don't have diabetes, you still want your glucose to be low when you have cancer because glucose feeds the cancer. So metformin helps with that. But more notably, it actually does target and destroy cancer stem cells, which is really cool. So I want to talk about vitamin D. Now, vitamin D on its own doesn't necessarily target and kill cancer stem cells, but it is a helper. It will help the process of finding and getting them. So many studies have shown that you want serum blood concentrations of vitamin D at 65 nanograms a milliliter or more. So basically you want to have a good amount of vitamin D in your body. And this has been shown A, to prevent cancer in the first place, or B, when you get your serum levels that high from taking vitamin D supplements, it's associated with lower case fatality rates. So less death with vitamin D. Get some vitamin D. And then I want to do a shout out to a couple of herbs that have been shown in vitro to target and kill cancer stem cells. So they have been shown to do this in the lab and are currently, right now as we speak, being tested in humans. So we'll see if these can officially be added to the list in the future. And those herbs are Rauwolfia vomitoria and Paupaureira. Hopefully I said those right. And if you want to stay current on this research and see how the research goes in humans, you can look up the Beljanski Foundation. They are doing this research and they have a beautiful story as well. So check them out. Okay, now on to the actual, you could call them treatments or procedures that target cancer stem cells. One of them is PEMF, P-E-M-F, pulsed electromagnetic fields. Now, this is a pretty easy therapy to find. Unless you're in a really rural area, you should be able to look up PEMF, PEMF, and find someone that offers this. It's relatively cheap, actually. You're essentially just sitting on these pads that are pumping some frequencies into you, and it doesn't hurt or anything. Now there's different ways of doing this therapy. You want a whole body treatment at high intensity, and what it does is it targets and kills the cancer stem cells. It actually can shrink tumors, including metastatic tumors. So it's really great. And it decreases inflammation, can decrease your side effects and adverse reactions from conventional treatment. It increases oxygenation, circulation, and natural killer cells, which is a good thing. So I recommend that. And then also another therapy type procedure service that targets cancer stem cells is PDT, photodynamic therapy. There's also many ways that this is done, but typically what happens is you take some kind of photosensitizer. So you take some kind of supplement. It could be a natural supplement. It could be a drug. It could be it could be methylene blue. It could be something you take orally. It could be an injection. It's something that's gonna make you sensitive to light. And then they run certain forms of wavelength light, certain special wavelengths over your body at whatever areas it needs to happen, depending on where the cancer is. And then what happens is at those sites, reactive oxygen species is created. And so this reactive oxygen species will target and kill the cancer cells, but they leave the healthy cells intact and in fact are beneficial for healthy cells. So it's a cool therapy as well. It's also not too hard to find, although it's probably easier to find the PEMF. And this one I think is a little pricier, but worth looking into. And then sonar therapy is another one. So sound therapy, not just any sound therapy, certain ones like histotripsy, which uses sound to target and destroy tumors. And there's actually a combination of PDT, photodynamic therapy, with the sonar therapy called sonodynamic therapy. So that's a really good one as well. All right, so there you have it. Let's go over these very briefly again. We have melatonin, EGCG, ellagic acid, vitamin C, berries, particularly due to the pterostilbene, blueberries and ginger together, sulforaphanes, curcumin, metformin, vitamin D as a helper. Did I miss something? Perhaps I did. The honorable mentions, Raufia, vomitoria, pauparera, the therapies PDT, photodynamic therapy, and PEMF, pulse electromagnetic fields, sonar therapy, like sonodynamic therapy and histotripsy. And if there's any that I missed, it's in the realm of possibility. There's more than this that I may have missed. I don't know everything, but I do know quite a lot, I think. And thank you so much. So before you go, I do have a free gift for you all. Do look in the description box and click the link. There is a free article I wrote. You could call it a short ebook. It's like 30 some pages, and it's called 10 Common Healing Factors to What Those Cancer Survivors Had in Common Who Beat the Odds. Something like that. 10 Common Healing Factors Among Cancer Survivors Who Beat the Odds. It's based on Kelly A. Turner's research on spontaneous remission over decades and what she found as the 10 common denominators of those who had spontaneous remissions. And one of those is herbs and supplements. So go find out what these herbs and supplements had in common among these survivors. And with that being said, much love. Please do comment. Let me know what you think. Like and follow. Much love.